everyone, it's Danzy. Well, we did it, another season in the bag. I'll start off by saying sorry that this video's a bit late. So far September has been a bit of a crazy month for me personally, this past week especially because I was celebrating my birthday with my family. However, the show must go on, so here's all the stuff I usually say, and let's get started. So, one of the best scenes of the season was also the last. It looked really, really nice. Just like I said about Drogon attacking the loot train in episode 4, the highest compliment I can give is that it was exactly what I'd imagine a zombie dragon knocking down a wall would look like. I liked how slow it was, too. The wall is so iconic now that it's almost like a character. It's this beautiful ancient structure that you have to watch fall to its knees. So it makes sense to shoot the scene like it's suffering a sad, agonizing death. A really big kudos to the special effects team. I think they nailed this. I really liked this scene a lot, if I'm being honest. Theon's story has always been one of identity, and Jon makes a really interesting satellite to bounce these ideas off of. Looking at these two characters, their beginnings of being outsiders in their own homes parallel, but their journeys are fascinatingly different. Jon, despite being a bastard, was always able to find a place in the causes he backs, easily gaining personal drive in his sense of duty to protect others. Unlike Theon, Jon at least has the emotional luxury of knowing himself. It also makes sense that Theon would look up to him in a way that kind of manifested in jealousy. The sense of purpose and identity is what Theon was desperately stumbling through life trying to find. Theon's tragedy is that he focused so much on how his unique circumstance was something to get out from under, but what he didn't realize was that learning from two different worlds was his greatest strength. All this time he was chasing a false dichotomy. So this is a pretty good way to emotionally complete his story, helped by the fact that Theon is one of the characters they've pretty consistently gotten right over the years. I wish I could say these scenes were completely spotless, but I was a little frustrated with the fight scene on the beach. It would have been perfect, but the writers needed to force a stupid wink to the audience about how it's funny that Theon can't be kneed in the balls because he doesn't have any. Wah wah. I'm really not sure what they were thinking shoving this in the middle of emotional character development. I've kind of ignored Jaime this season, so let's talk about his very overdue decision to leave Cersei. While I was happy to see it, I do think that it mostly fell flat, because this is just one more horrible thing she's done added to an already long list of horrible things. I mean, she's obviously being extremely awful by choosing not to help, and it's in character for him to not just quietly stand by. It's just weird that this specifically was what they decided to be the final straw for him. If you want to know where I thought this was going, I thought that Cersei was going to end up sleeping with Euron and Jaime was going to find out about it. Her having a child with someone else behind his back would even be an ironic role reversal for when Jaime fathered Cersei's children without Robert's knowledge. Here he just seems to be calling her out for being a terrible person. But if he already didn't bat an eye at what really should have triggered painful similarities between her and Aerys, then this is a weird moment to suddenly slap her with divorce papers. Interpersonally, an affair would have made more sense, and him calling it quits over her pyrotechnics last season would have had more significance. Again, it's not technically incorrect for him to do this, it's just extremely odd that they ignored so many perfect opportunities for so long, only to have him pull away from her over something unconnected from their personal histories. I don't disagree with the final outcome, but the timing was way late and the reasoning could have been so much stronger, especially since this left him stuck in character progression limbo for 4 seasons. Alright, there's a ton to talk about here, so let's just hit everything chronologically. First of all, did you guys know the Unsullied were eunuchs? In case you forgot, here's a joke about it for the 800th time. Look, I'm not saying that drama can't have lighter moments or sink down to lowbrow comedy, but Jesus, diversify the humor once in a while. This whole scene was basically just them saying lol penis over and over again. Also, don't think I don't see you back there, Unsullied. We're sitting down to chat about this whole Casterly Rock plotline very soon. But yeah, I really wish they had just cut this scene, because the rest of the lead up to the Dragon Pit was more or less fine, but felt rushed and could have benefited from this screen time. And on that note, I think a better strategy, rather than have a whole bunch of tiny character exchanges, would just be to focus on a single conversation for the whole walk. The director clearly wanted to reflect on the metaphorical, long and winding road that has been everyone's moves around the political chessboard. And who better to talk about this than two soldiers who have had so many contrasting switches in allegiance? They both left the city under very powerful circumstances, so how do they feel about coming back? Finally getting to the Dragon Pit, some of this I did think was okay. The Hound staring down his brother was fitting. Euron's spiel about peacing out and Cersei's reaction to it were well acted. Lena Headey really had all these scenes wrapped around her finger, actually. She was pretty great. Although, why Cersei is so quick to write off the idea of zombies as a joke is a bit weird. Like, sweetie, you have a zombie, remember? He's right over there. Who I really want to talk about is Jon, though. The episode really pushed the idea that Jon is someone who won't lie or break oaths. Okay, but what about that time he lied to all those wildlings and pretended to be on their side, and then broke his oath to the Night's Watch by having sex? Are we just not gonna mention this, or... Like, yes, Jon was raised a Stark, and yes, he holds Ned's moral teachings in high regard, but what separates him from Ned and Robb is that he's much more willing to bend rules if it's for the greater good. He'd absolutely lie. In fact, he'd lie in a heartbeat if he believed it was to the benefit of millions. Although, Cersei was obviously planning on screwing them over regardless, so I don't even really get why they bothered with this whole Jon thing. Well, okay, I mean, I guess it was so Daenerys would get the hots over his dedication to her, but wouldn't she find him bending his moral code more appealing, since it's something he's only prone to doing for causes he really believes in? This could have even kicked off a really great conversation afterwards. I don't know, maybe it's just me who finds quick thinking a lot more sexy than blind loyalty. So, it turns out that Littlefinger was just being played this whole time, you guys. Okay, I'm going to break this down in a way that's gonna get a little weird, but stick with me. Imagine if an entire Scooby-Doo episode was just the main character sitting around getting baked in Shaggy's basement, and then, right before the credits rolled, it cuts to the bad guy tied up in the back of the mystery machine. You're never shown how they solved the case or put the clues together, just that 1 minute you were watching one thing, and then plopped onto your lap is an unrelated conclusion and everybody celebrating a job well done. Now, pretend everything I just said was about this season's Winterfell plotline. This reveal is weak because it's an answer with no equation. Just yelling the number 34 doesn't mean anything, because you never told us that 20 plus 14 is what was trying to be solved. You're saying the Stark kids worked together to take down Littlefinger, but we're never shown how or when they made the decision to do it. All we got was a series of Arya and Sansa having private arguments. So how could they ensure that he was listening in order to fool him? And even if he was, why the pants-crapping looks of fear and serial killer performances? Let's say he was eavesdropping. He still can't see you when you're all alone in a room. To a rational viewer, it doesn't look like you planted this at all, because there's zero differentiating evidence that this was all supposed to be some elaborate scheme, and not Arya genuinely about to go Leatherface on her sister. It's more like you just couldn't be bothered to write a detailed plot of Sansa, Arya, and Bran getting together, comparing notes, and hatching a plan, so you wrote a bunch of melodrama and tried to pass that off as the intended angle all along. Also, those who were hoping for some sort of epic endgame from Littlefinger, well, hope you were happy with him just idling around Winterfell for his final season. Alright, let's tackle this. So, instead of getting info about how this annulment went down, or even interesting insight into how these two would undoubtedly be having complicated feelings about romantically skipping off while their families are at war, We just get shown their literal wedding ceremony, which we already knew about from a previous episode. This is a total waste of a flashback. It's just here to be R+L=J footage, which is fine in theory, but this isn't even very good footage. It looked like it was shot in about 5 minutes with a $100 budget. They even recycled the wig and sword from Viserys' Season 1 costume. But where I really gotta hit the brakes on this mess is the line, "Robert's rebellion was built on a lie." This is objectively untrue, and spitting in the face of this universe's established history. People didn't rally around Robert because they felt sorry for him that his fiancée got kidnapped. No, they did it because Aerys was spiraling out of control and burning people. Rebellion was an inevitability. This was just the final breaking point. Not only that, but you're implying that Bran would have been happy to see the death and suffering of countless people, including his uncle and grandfather, go unavenged because Lyanna and Rhaegar were in love? Why does that make a difference? Also, Rhaegar already has a son named Aegon. You're kidding me, right? Of all the names you could have chosen. There might be things this show has done that I've disliked more, but this is by far the laziest they have ever gotten. An appalling lack of effort went into this, and it was done without an ounce of respect for the characters, lore, or audience. This week's finale was interesting, to say the least. It was another polarized episode for me. I was pleasantly surprised by a few things, but the stuff that didn't work really didn't work. To the point where, at least to me, it painted a picture of the showrunners just kinda being done with this project and wanting to get it over with. But I'll be touching more on that soon. As always though, I do want to hear what you guys thought of the finale, so let me know in the comments. Also be sure to like, subscribe, and share the video if you enjoyed it, and if you want to further support the channel, head on over to my Patreon where you can get some cool rewards for donating. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week for my closing thoughts on the season.